with the audio. I want to recognize Dawn's efforts. And Andy Parkinson is helping with the video. Thank you, Andy. Appreciate it. And my brother John, who's here, just making sure that I'm doing the minding my P's and Q's. Is that correct? Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you. I would now open it up to questions, and everybody on the panel or anybody will be happy to try to answer questions that people might have.
If you care to come to the microphone, you can certainly do so.
Yeah, thank you.
That might be helpful.
It's a very modest and quiet crowd here. Come forward, if you don't mind, just come to the microphone.
There's a number of proposals in the state legislature right now to raise the minimum wage. I think 4 or 5 different pieces of legislation.
Yeah.
What's the likelihood that that's going to come together and coalesce around one thing that's going to help everybody in the state of Maine?
That's a very good question. I think, Christy, do you want to, because you're more focusing on the Augusta issues.
Sure, absolutely. That's a good question. I think at first, proponents of the minimum wage increase thought the odds were pretty steep, given the composition of the State House right now. But initiatives like these municipal level initiatives, like what happened in Portland earlier, what's happening in Bangor now, that's attracting a lot of attention. And attention is what convinces policymakers to listen to their constituents. And at the same time, there are some rumblings about a referendum. And that's something that some policymakers have explicitly said they do not want. They do not want a referendum deciding the minimum wage. They would rather have control over it and do it themselves. So I think the fact that you're out here and you're making noise and you're saying this is a need that you perceive for your community it's trickling down to policymakers. So it's more optimistic than it was, for sure.
Does anybody else on the panel want to say anything about that? Thank you. Any other questions, comments, concerns?
Well, I have a concern.
Yep, if you could come forward to speak into the microphone if you don't mind. Thank you for coming.
You're welcome. Hello. My concern is the economist had mentioned that only 1.7, I think you said, of people who are in low-paying jobs can transition to a better and higher-paying job. And I just wondered what the research showed, what factors would benefit them. Because it seems to me a lot of the people that are in these low-paying jobs work terrible hours, and they don't even have a predictable schedule from week to week. And I don't see how they could, write resumes and go to interviews, and how would they even find time to better themselves?
Okay.
Maybe getting an education.
Okay, let me, Todd, you want to talk about that? Because it's more than just the minimum wage. I mean, there are other policy issues. Yeah. Do you mind? We don't have a wireless mic. This is a very low-tech event, and I appreciate everyone's patience.
I guess I think the way you phrased it was that about 2% can move up. Is that 2% of the people kind of do move up? I think that probably a lot higher percentage would have the potential, but if you look, and just to kind of talk a little bit more about those numbers, those are looking at a transition over a 12-month period. So that's saying over a 12-month period, about 2% of the people that are in these low-wage jobs do move up. So over.
What causes them to move up?
That's really what we're going to be researching over the next couple years. We're looking at things like education. So we know a lot about these people. We know their education. We know their age. We know the types of jobs. We know where the city that they live in. So we're looking at those factors. Some of the preliminary things are what you would expect. Certainly educational attainment is a very good predictor of somebody's ability to move up. Another thing that we're doing is we're looking, and we're not treating all the low-wage jobs the same. We're putting them into groups based on the types of skills that people use, and we're finding that low-wage jobs that involve more direct with people skills, those individuals tend to have a better chance of moving up than somebody that's perhaps in a low-wage job that doesn't involve as much interaction with people. So again, these are preliminary in that we're just really starting the project, but I think we will find, we'll strengthen those results over time, and but just kind of give you a preview or flavor. There are good factors that we predict.
I just wanted to say that in the United States, bond poor, die poor is increasingly a way of life. The mobility within society is much greater in European countries than it was here where we have the American dream. So we've got to look at things. As I look at you all out here, and as you look at me, we're all seeing predators. That's what we are. We are all animals. And my grandfather was born in Sligo Island. When he was 8 years old, he had to leave because there was no food. He worked in an English textile mill 6 days a week, 10 hours a day. And the whole of his life was, when he got to the United States, was a very tough one. So it's what we do. And as a predatory species, we do that. You, me, and the next guy. Now, I heard about you over there. I heard about you. I talked to your mom. She told me all the things you did, and you needed regulation when you were younger. And you know what? We all need regulation. We are who we are. We've got these instincts to exploit, do bad things. So regulation, setting things like minimum wage, preventing terrible things environmentally. This has got to be regulated. If we don't do that, we're in awful trouble. I grew up after World War II. We had won World War II, and we had come through the recession. We pulled together to do this. I thought that was the way the world was, but you know what? I was wrong again. They changed it on me. So let's bring it back. John, let's hear from you.